Hi everyone, apologies, I'm running a couple of minutes over. Thanks for joining our webinar this evening. So those of you on the program will know me on our type 2 reversal program. So I'm Andy Shepherd, I'm the clinical lead and the guy who's always giving out about carbohydrates in the videos on the program. And for those of you I haven't met, lovely to meet you, and thanks for tuning in this evening. So this evening, what we're going to be talking about, guys, is how to reverse type 2, and yes, reverse type 2 diabetes in 16 weeks. So the good news, if you're type 2 diabetic, and let me just adjust my camera here for a second, is that you can absolutely reverse type 2 diabetes. The idea that type 2 diabetes can't be reversed or is a progressive lifelong condition doesn't bear out when you look at the literature. It's absolutely reversible, and it's possible to do it in a relatively short period of time. So you're talking kind of 3 to 4 months kind of a thing. Okay, so in terms of the format, guys, what we'll be covering is I'll be taking your questions towards the end. And if anyone has a question, just pop it in the comments on on YouTube. And I'm going to share a few slides here, just cover some of the basics. I'll talk about how we reverse type 2 diabetes, what foods to choose, what foods to kind of avoid, and also I'll take any questions you have, and I'll talk a little bit about our program as well. Okay, now let me just add something to the stream here. Okay, so first of all, when you look at type 2 diabetes, it's funny, sometimes people say to me, you know, I have diabetes, but I'm on medication for that, almost as if to infer that being on medication is, you know, you're kind of solved, or there's something under control there, and that's really not the case at all. So when you're on medication, you're kind of addressing the symptoms of a condition as opposed to getting to the root cause of it. So if you look in the States, for example, this is just trending the graph of type 2 diabetes in the USA. There's about 26 million people at the moment have type 2 diabetes in the USA. Almost all of them, 95-96% are on medication, yet nobody is cured. Type 2 diabetes medication does not cure type 2 diabetes. It just addresses the symptoms. So an analogy I like to use is it's kind of like type 2 diabetes is, first of all, it's kind of like carbohydrate allergy or carbohydrate intolerance. And how we're dealing with carbohydrate allergies, we're telling people, oh no, continue to eat your porridge and your Weetabix and your breads and cereals and the stuff that we know now from looking at the science of the last 10 or 12 years is definitely going to spike your blood sugar levels, but then take metformin to get your blood sugar levels back down. It's not a good approach at all. It's really not a good approach. So what we want to do when we're treating type 2 is we want to treat the root cause, which is hyperinsulinemia, high levels of insulin, which is basically a hormone your pancreas makes to deal with sugar in the blood, from too much sugar in the blood. So what's the main source of sugar in the diet? And you'd actually be wrong if you said sugar. If you said Coke and cakes and biscuits, that's not the main source of sugar in the diet. The main source of sugar, and that's some of it, that's probably 20% of it, is actually things like bread, rice, pasta, potatoes, breakfast cereals, all that's granola bars, scones, all that sort of stuff, because all dietary carbohydrate boils down to sugar in the blood, meaning that when you eat those high carb foods, they boil down to blood glucose, the high levels of sugar in the blood. Now, drug therapy, so taking metformin when your blood sugar levels go high, doesn't address the root cause. It doesn't address the diabetes at all. So the thing to recognize that's hugely important is we can eat the cornflakes and the cereals and the rice and the pasta and then take the medication. But the high blood sugar levels that you get before you lower them with the medication does all the vascular damage and the heart disease and these statistics you hear about, where you hear that people got amputations and strokes and went blind. All those people are on medication. The medication doesn't prevent that. It just lowers your blood sugar levels a bit, but it can't stop the onslaught of eating a high carb diet. So the drug therapy doesn't address the root cause. Addressing the root cause has to be changing the diet. Nobody has ever reversed diabetes by taking medication. Yet there are thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people out there who've reversed their type 2 diabetes on a low carb diet by addressing the root cause. So this is a study we did back in 2017. So we showed as far back as 2017, 5 years ago now, showed a 48% reversal rate in type 2 diabetes in the first 8 weeks alone. Now, bear in mind, this is at a time where doctors were still saying, I don't think you can reverse type 2 diabetes and you're going to be on medication for life. Now, we've shown this time and time again, and more recently won the International Scholar Award from the American Heart Association for our outcomes on diabetes in primary care, working with doctors. So you can absolutely reverse type 2 diabetes. And again, if we look at the guidelines, initially people were saying, well, you just need to lose a bit of weight and you just need to eat less calories and do a bit more exercise. And then the American Diabetes Association, when they saw all the evidence, have come out and said, reducing your carbs is what reverses diabetes. Now, their fancy way of saying that, of course, was reducing overall carbohydrate intake for people with diabetes has demonstrated the most evidence for improving glycemia. To break that down, it basically means eat less carbs, that will reverse your diabetes. It's not just for improving glycemia, it's for reversing diabetes. So this is the consensus guidelines are now saying, actually, the consensus report is saying, cut your carbs. Don't eat less calories, don't just lose weight or exercise, eat less carbs. Because essentially, type 2 diabetes is carbohydrate allergy. Hugely important thing to recognize. Now, I want to show you something around how type 2 diabetes happens. So a lot of times people will say to me, well, type 2 is the one that you do to yourself, or type 2 is the one that if you have a bad diet. Absolutely incorrect. Type 2 diabetes happens when your genetic predisposition for a disease crosses over with your environment. So basically, you've got your genetic predisposition, are you likely to get diabetes, and then what you eat, and it crosses over. So that doesn't mean if you're genetically prone to getting type 2 diabetes that you will definitely get it. It just means you're way more likely. So the vast majority of patients, when I'm doing our first consultation, I'd say to them, have you any diabetes in the family? And they'd say they either have diabetes or heart disease or stroke. It's almost, which by the way are they're very similar in terms of how they arise in the body. So people will say they have one or the other 95% of the time. My two aunts have it, one of my uncles has it, my mum had it, my dad had it, two of my brothers have it. It's almost always there. Almost always. So it's not about blame. I say it in every single presentation I do. It's where your genetic predisposition crosses over what you eat. And what I mean by that is if you have diabetes, there's probably 100 people out there somewhere who ate a diet almost identical to yours in terms of carbs, fat and protein and sugar and will never get diabetes and mightn't get high blood pressure, mightn't gain weight around the midsection. That's just the nature of the human condition. So type 2 diabetes happens when your pancreas has to make a hormone called insulin. And I love explaining this to people because I often get the feedback that, God, nobody bothered to explain that to me before. Type 2 diabetes happens when your pancreas has to make a hormone called insulin. And the role of insulin, what insulin does in the body is it lowers sugar levels. It also causes the body to store fat, which is why sugar makes you fat. So when you eat, let's say, for example, you eat an omelette, the protein and fat in that doesn't spike your insulin and doesn't spike your blood sugar levels at all compared to carbs. If you eat protein, which is mostly meat, if you eat or veg, if you eat fat, which can be, butter, coconut oil, cheese, chia seeds, avocado, that sort of stuff, that doesn't spike your blood sugar levels at all. If you eat carbs, especially processed carbs, bread, rice, pasta, potatoes, breakfast cereals, scones, all the sort of stuff that actually we eat loads of in Ireland, which explains the explosion of type 2 diabetes and obesity. Those carbohydrates, and this is a point that I want you to take away from today, whether you decide you want to work with me or not and reverse your diabetes, or whether I never meet you and you just take this away from today, please take in what I'm about to say. Type 2 diabetes is, by every logical definition, carbohydrate allergy. When you eat carbohydrates, they boil down to glucose or sugar in the blood. High blood sugar levels are what cause diabetes and make it worse when you have it. So if you think about the current treatment of diabetes, it's mad. So we tell patients, I say we, but when you go into a doctor, the doctor's job is to address the symptoms of what you've got, not to cure the disease. So the doctor tells you, okay, you've high blood sugar levels, you've carbohydrate allergy. I want you to take metformin, insulin, Victoza, Ozempic, whatever the medications are to lower your blood sugar levels. Instead of saying, well, actually what you have is carbohydrate intolerance. So maybe we'll eat less processed carbohydrate and we won't need medication. And what's more, if you take somebody off processed carbohydrates for 16 weeks without counting calories, without doing tons of exercise, without being hungry at all, you will reverse their diabetes every single time, especially if they're diagnosed within the last 5 or 6 years, because the pancreas is is still kind of has the ability to make a full recovery. Now, you can put someone in remission if they've been diagnosed longer than 5 or 6 years ago, which is to say that their diabetes will be gone, but they'll need to stick to the diet relatively closely after they go into remission, not to get it back again, because their pancreas is kind of broken if you're 6, 7, 8 years, 7 or 8 years or longer diagnosed. But if you're relatively recently diagnosed, you can kind of reverse it. You can fully reverse it. And if you are diagnosed beyond that 8, 9, 10 years or longer, you can put it in remission and keep it away. Either way, you're safe, and it's not going to lead to amputations, blindness, kidney problems, liver failure, cancers, the list goes on. Okay, so sorry, this slide didn't come across great, but lowering the blood sugar response in the body comes down to knowing which types of foods to eat. If you look in red here, carbohydrates cause a big spike in your blood sugar levels, and then it drops down 2 hours later, and that's why you're always hungry if you're hungry. That's why, because your blood sugar levels go up, 2 hours later they go down after the bowl of porridge and you're starving. You have a scone at the garage on the way into work, or I'm telling my story, blood sugar levels go up, they drop back down. You're constantly tired, you're constantly hungry, your mood goes up and down a little bit. This is known as blood glucose or blood sugar dysregulation, meaning that you're all over the place because your sugars are just not being regulated at all correctly by the body. And when this happens, when your sugars are up, down, up, down, up, down, your body is constantly producing insulin. And when your pancreas gets tired from doing that, that's type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes is basically where your pancreas goes on holidays because it's tired. Now, what's really important is if we swap this around, if you look at protein and fat in the kind of navy colours here, that's what they do to your blood sugar levels. They don't go anywhere near as high, and they keep them stable. So hugely important. So again, if we look at carbohydrates as being essentially something that's going to turn to sugar, if you look at a bowl of cornflakes, the food industry market foods towards us as being a certain amount of calories, because the previously held belief, and most people with any sense don't believe in calories in, calories out anymore, used to believe weight gain and weight loss was all about calories, and if we just keep an eye on our calories, we'd all be fine. And sometimes when people say that to me, they say, a calorie is a calorie. And I say, okay, so you're telling me that somebody who eats 2,000 calories of eggs, avocado, Greek yogurt and green vegetables is going to look and be the same and weigh the same as somebody who eats 2,000 calories in chocolate bars and cream eggs? And they say, yep, because a calorie is a calorie. Absolutely, patently and demonstrably incorrect. A calorie is not a calorie. And what's more important is, when you eat these low-calorie processed foods like cornflakes, cereals, granola bars, rice, pasta, they all convert to sugar in the blood. So all carbohydrate must be metabolized as glucose in the blood, all digestible carbohydrate, not including fiber. So when you eat these cereals, you're talking about roughly, 20, 21 spoons of sugar in your blood. It's that equivalent. So when I get my patients to go from a diet that's high in processed carbs, and they swap that out and they have eggs and avocado in the morning, they will say to me, every time, why did nobody tell me this before? My sugars have gone from between 10 and 20 down to 5, 6, 7, 8 in a day. Like a day. I was just saying to it on a consultation with a patient before this call, before this presentation. I was saying, I will get your blood sugar levels from 13, 14 down to 5 or 6. And he said, how long will that take? I said, roughly 12 hours. So you get up in the morning, I'll show you the difference when you start eating the right way. It's incredible. It really is. Okay, so I wanted to kind of cover the fruits and vegetables. So what kind of fruits and vegetables you should eat. Now, as a general rule, and let me just take myself off camera here, this will be a lot easier. So when it comes to your blood sugar levels, fruits are kind of a mixed bag. You want to be careful with fruit. So people make the assumption that because fruit is healthy, and it is to a degree, that all fruits are equal and we should eat loads of fruit. And that is absolutely not true. So if you look at the fructose content, which is fruit sugar in fruit, and fruit sugar, fructose is not healthy. People say, oh, it's fruit sugar, so it's healthy. It's not. If you wanted to give someone a fatty liver and high blood sugar levels, fruit would be one of the quickest ways to do it. I would feed someone, if I didn't like someone and I got to choose what to feed them and I wanted to give them a fatty liver and type 2 diabetes, it'd be grapes, bananas, mango, tropical fruits and pineapple. That would be the quickest way to make someone fat. Now, if you look at the fruits, strawberries, raspberries and blackberries are by far the lowest in sugar. They're by far the best for your blood sugar levels. Blueberries are about triple the sugar content of the other berries, so you be careful with those. Cauliflower, broccoli, greens, and any vegetable that grows above the ground will help you get way better blood sugar levels. But potatoes and sweet potatoes are balls of sugar. By the time they metabolize, you have the equivalent to 5 or 6 spoons of sugar in the blood per medium potato. So it's not trivial. The starch breaks down to glucose in the blood and really spikes your blood sugar levels. So if you look at this, and this is the kind of advice that just kind of frustrates me when I hear people being told to have porridge and Weetabix and cereals, and I mean it's crazy, because all you have to do is have those foods and check your blood sugar levels 2 hours later. Then the next morning have a ham and cheese omelette and check your blood sugar levels 2 hours later, and you will see night and day of a difference. You'll see in the latter example with the eggs, you'll see 50% of a reduction in your blood sugar levels. So if you look at breakfast cereals, for example, and lots of us think these are a good idea, Cocoa Pops, cornflakes, porridge, Weetabix, shredded wheat, because they're carbohydrate based, are all more or less the same thing. They are going to spike your blood sugar levels, equivalent to somewhere between 14 and 18 spoons of sugar in some of them. And this is a really important distinction I want to make, because somebody pulled me up on this, and to be fair to him, he misinterpreted what I said. But I'm not saying that there are 16 spoons of sugar in a bowl of cornflakes. It's not that they've added in 16 spoons of sugar. It's that if you look at the metabolic pathway of carbohydrates, all dietary carbohydrate is metabolized as blood glucose. So whether you eat 17 spoons of sugar in your blood, and by the way, this is a publication from a really well-known journal, scientific journal called the Journal of Insulin Resistance, by a brilliant doctor in the UK called Dr. David Unwin. So it's not that you're eating 16 actual spoons of sugar, or they've put in 16 spoons of sugar in it. Because if you read the sugars on the side, the of which sugars, it'll say under carbs, will be much lower. It'll say carbs 80 grams, of which sugars 2. The truth is, it all sugars. We understand that now. So all dietary carbohydrate boils down to sugar in the blood. So you're left with the equivalent to 16 spoons of sugar in the blood, which is just devastating to your vascular health, your heart, your kidneys, your feet, your eyes, all that sort of stuff, especially if you're type 2. And we see this with common foods that we think are good as well. So rice, potatoes, chips, spaghetti, all that sort of stuff. And then as we start going down to things like oily fish, almonds, mushroom, cheese, a big steak with broccoli, cauliflower, butter, strawberries and cream, they have no sugar in them. I mean, strawberries have a trace amount of sugar. But when you know what foods to eat, it makes reversing diabetes very, very doable. So as a quick summary, the foods that you want to avoid: bread, rice, pasta, and this is really important. It doesn't matter if it's wholemeal or white bread, all of it converts to sugar in the blood. Is it correct to say that wholemeal bread is better for your blood sugar levels and better for your weight compared to white? Yes, it is, but the difference is not huge. It's not significant. You're talking about 8 spoons of sugar in 2 slices of white bread, 7.4 spoons of sugar in 2 slices of whole grain bread. And then when you know what to eat, we give patients foods that won't spike your blood sugar levels at all. None whatsoever. It'll be the equivalent to eating 0 spoons of sugar. So breakfast cereals, fizzy drinks, high sugar fruits, starchy vegetables, and obvious stuff like cakes and pastries, all to be avoided. The foods to choose then: meat, fish and seafood, full fat cheeses. The idea that low fat is good for you or will help you with weight loss is nonsense. If it did, then we'd have a population of skinny people, because we've all bought low fat foods for the last 30 years. We know now fat doesn't make you fat, as odd a statement as that seems to be. It's called the carbohydrate insulin model of obesity, is the way we look at things now as practitioners. So carbohydrates drive a hormone in the body because they boil down to glucose, drive a hormone up called insulin. Insulin is a fat storage hormone. So carbohydrates mediate weight gain. So ironically, if you're getting a big burger inside in a restaurant, it's the bun that will cause the high blood sugar levels and the weight gain, not the burger or the bacon or the egg or any of that sort of stuff. So these are the foods that we get patients to eat, and we always say to patients, eat as much as you want of this stuff, you will lose loads of weight and your diabetes will reverse. And they think, well, that sounds too good to be true. I had a guy on a UK trial, a clinical trial we ran in the UK in a place called Homewell, and hello to anyone who's tuning in from there. So I'm really fond of those patients because we worked together quite closely over 3 or 4 months. And there was a guy who was an author or a journalist, an author, and he claimed that he wanted to write a book and call it Eat Cheese, Drink Champagne and Reverse Your Diabetes, because he couldn't get over the fact that he was eating half a block of cheese today. His cholesterol got better, by the way, and that would take a whole new talk to explain. His cholesterol got better, his blood pressure, he came off his blood pressure medication, lost over 3 stone and reverses diabetes. So it just goes to show not what you'd expect. This is one of our recent testimonials. So Charlie, a guy I worked with quite closely, his HbA1c, which is your 120-day average of your blood sugar control, went from 86 to 41. And this is actually quite typical of what we see. We see this all the time. So his HbA1c went from 86, which is kind of not great, down to 41, which is completely non-diabetic. So basically, he reverses diabetes. Don't mind ALT and GGT, they're just markers of liver function. So his liver function got dramatically better. He had a fatty liver. By the way, if you have a fatty liver, the program that we put people on to reverse diabetes also reverses fatty liver at the same time. And then he lost 124.6 to 109, 15.6 kgs. Science is my strong point, not maths. So he lost about, I think that's about 2.5 stone, something like that as well. Quite a lot of weight. This is just some feedback from doctors who refer patients in to reverse their diabetes. And just as a quick overview, refined carbs, bread, rice, pasta, that you are allergic to that stuff if you have type 2 diabetes. Whole foods and a little bit of exercise can comfortably reverse your type 2 diabetes. Just a little word about what we do. So we've shown since 2017 we've been reversing diabetes. The award in the middle is the highest accolade you can get for publishing clinical data. It's the Paul Dudley White International Scholar Award, which we won 2020, so just the year before last, late 2020, November 2020, for our work on reversing diabetes in primary care, so with doctors. And we've lots of awards, Clinical Pharmacy Congress awards and things like that as well. So what we do on the program, and if anyone is interested in this, I'll pop my mobile number up and you can let me know if you want to reverse your diabetes and work with us. We get you set up. By that I mean we post you out, let me get myself back on camera here, post you out a monitor like this. We monitor your blood sugar levels, and that monitor allows me to see what your blood sugar levels are. We give you the meal plans, shopping list, food guides, cooking videos, everything that you need to reverse your type 2 diabetes. And then when you check your blood sugar levels on our app, we can actually see it straight away. I can see it on my dashboard. I can see what your blood sugar levels are. There's no calorie counting, none of that sort of stuff, no magic protein bars or pills. We don't try to sell you any of that nonsense because we don't believe in it. And we do Zoom consultations as part of the program. So we would do once a week for the first 4 weeks and every 2 weeks thereafter. But you've 24/7 access to your health coach. So if anyone wants to text me or ring me over the weekend, that's absolutely fine. We're borderline obsessed with this sort of stuff in my house. So that's what we do. In terms of the price then, for the type 2 reversal, it's €499 or 3 payments of €185. There are companies out there charging $4.5 to $5,000 to do this. We don't believe that that's warranted or justified. So $499 to stop yourself going on to have problems with your feet or eyes or heart or kidneys or amputations, heart disease, cancers, all the sort of stuff that you see in type 2 diabetes is, I promise you, the best money you will ever spend. I'm going to go jump on another call because I have a patient coming on to talk about reversing her diabetes at 7:30, so in 3 minutes time, on a separate YouTube link which is for our members, and that's something you get access to every week as well. We do presentations on various different things and answer all your questions. We only have 2 places left for February, guys. If you do want to get started, please let me know. And I'm not just saying this, those places will be gone by tomorrow because I have 11 or 12 consultations tomorrow with people, so there's always going to be a couple of sign-ups there. Now, because I'm on a call between 7:30 and 8 and I'm on another YouTube live, if you want to hold a place to get started, just let me know, because there are only 2 places and it has to be first come, first served. My mobile number is the easiest number ever to remember. It's 086 086 1300. I won't be able to take any calls until after 8 p.m. My phone is usually hopping after webinars. So if you do want to hold a place and get on the program and get started, I can get you started as soon as Monday, because I have 2 cancellations on Monday and 1 on Tuesday. Let me know, but do let me know ASAP tonight. Even just send a text and say, look, can you just hold a slot for me until we do a free consultation and chat about how we can make this work for you. I'm going to jump. Guys, thank you so much for spending half an hour of your evening with me. I appreciate you being here. If anyone has any questions, if anyone wants to get in touch, send me a text or give me a call on 086 086 1300 and we can get you up and running and reverse your diabetes. Guys, thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.